Still trying to cope with the tragic loss of his 22-year-old sister, China. A moment of silence here at the Garden, and tears streaming down the face of Isaiah Thomas. He will play.
Washington up by one. Isaiah Thomas. He's not human. Foul called and one.
They tried switches. They tried trapping. Going under Isaiah Thomas right now in a zone.
Isaiah Thomas has cracked 50. A remarkable night for Isaiah Thomas. 53 points. And Boston has run away with it.
From, man, where is this coming from?
It's my sister. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday. She would have been 23 today.
I always dream of moments like this of winning playoff series, winning playoff games, close games, overtime games in the playoffs, because those are where legends are born. And one day I want to be one of those guys. So
I'm a max guy, so I deserve the max. And we just got to continue to take care of business on the court and let the cards fall where they may. But I'm happy for all the guards and all the other guys getting their money because they deserve it. But, I mean, my time's coming. They know they got to bring the Brinks truck out. They know that.
2017 was the year of Isaiah Thomas. After years of defying the odds and slowly climbing up towards stardom, this was the season it all came together. The King of the Fourth became only the 14th player in NBA history to put up 29 and 6 in a season, and capped his miracle season off ranking 5th in MVP voting. What's more, he led his team to a conference final run highlighted by an iconic Round 2 series against the Wizards that established IT as a true NBA superstar. Being built like a mini-wheat and only being a couple inches taller than one, the 3'6" Thomas's story of overcoming the odds felt like it came straight out of a movie. So much of his life had consisted of bad luck and being overlooked, only for his hard work to pay off in the most classically satisfying way imaginable.
I'm amazed. You can make it to the fucking NBA at 5'9" and to be the last pick. I mean, you one of God's favorites, man. You gotta know that.
But following this season, whatever higher being had perfectly crafted IT's story up until this point had a fucking aneurysm. Any semblance of a cohesive plot of the life of Isaiah Thomas completely dissipated as his life took turns that were more unpredictable than, well, this photo shoot. Things began to crumble pretty much the instant this 2017 season came to a close. Warning signs hinting towards his downfall had already been present as the Celtics headed off to face the Cavaliers in the conference finals of that year, a series in which Thomas could only play 1.5 games of before being pulled from Game 2 with a hip strain that he had suffered a week prior and had been fighting through for 3 whole games. And to his and everyone's surprise, his underwhelming 2-point performance in this Game 2 would be the final note he'd end his Celtics career off on.
Continuing our breaking news coverage of a potential trade between the Celtics and the Cavs that would basically swap the starting point guards for the two teams that faced off in last year's Eastern Conference Finals. Kyrie Irving going to Boston, Isaiah Thomas going to Cleveland, along with some other players and a draft pick.
The evening of August 30th, 2017 was a day that shook the entire NBA world to its core. With no real expectations of anything like this happening, an up-and-coming Celtics franchise whose core group had just shown their first signs of real championship potential would then say goodbye to their franchise cornerstone. Danny Ainge would pull the trigger on a deal that would send Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and a draft pick that would become Colin Sexton to the Cavaliers, in exchange for a disgruntled Kyrie Irving searching for any way to get out of LeBron's shadow.
I just got back to Seattle. I'm chilling, headed home. And then, it got a little quiet. And then that's when he broke it to me. He's like, well, IT, I just traded you. Talking about my kids about to start school. Off the strength, after everything I went through, nigga. You're not supposed to do that. But it's
So that's what he wanted.
A mind as ruthless as it was ambitious, Danny Ainge opted to take a shot in the dark and risk losing everything he had built for the prospect of something unproven but potentially better. This move shocked the NBA scene, and the debates had about this deal were legendary. A squeaky 2017 KOGOSTOMUS supported the idea that Cleveland's ability to acquire a player just as good as Kyrie Irving, plus a wide array of additional assets on top of that, made them the clear winners of this move. But thankfully, we don't have any footage of me from that time, so no, don't ask.
This year has been a little bit disappointing for us NBA fans in terms of Thomas's quality of play, and as a result of this, many people have forgot just how great of a player he once was. As a member of the Boston Celtics, Thomas averaged a whopping 28.9 points per game and was 5th, yes, 5th in MVP voting just last season.
God damn it. The point I made here was obviously wrong in hindsight, but the logic here is representative of a widespread expectation that IT would come back from his injury as good as ever, and that was far from controversial at the time.
When did you know that you had suffered a torn labrum last year?
So again, like I don't want this to be the Isaiah Thomas hip press conference. And so I'm just gonna, with all the respect, shut down the hip questions.
With time, his hip injury would only end up being worse than anyone could have ever predicted. Time and time again, Thomas's timetable for return was pushed farther and farther back, as new revelations were made about just how bad of a condition his body was in.
We're just not gonna address the specifics of the injury, and not gonna comment on a timetable.
It was soon discovered that Thomas had first messed up his hip all the way back in March of the 2017 regular season, on a play where Karl Anthony Towns had fallen on top of him. And ever since that moment, the injury had slowly grown worse and worse in a manner that made it difficult to pinpoint just how bad the injury could become in the future.
So I hurt myself back in March. Karl Anthony Towns had fell on me, tweaked my hip a little bit, but at that point in time, I only messed my knee up, like I sprained my knee. My hip was like, I didn't feel nothing. Once we hit the playoffs, the tragic news happened. My hip was slowly getting a little worse. The only thing that I would have against Boston was not explaining to me what the extent of my injury could be if I do play.
The 2017 through 18 season kicked off without Isaiah Thomas anywhere in sight, and soon enough, his absence grew to become the norm. The Celtics moved on with Kyrie Irving taking Thomas's place at the helm of the ship, and the presence of LeBron in Cleveland made it easy to forget all about IT's existence on the team in the first place. It was clear that only a few months after Thomas dropped 53 points in the conference semifinals, there really was no room for him in the NBA anymore.
Why is he even having a tribute video? I don't think he deserves it. He was only there 2 years.
Desperate to return back to the court, Thomas chose not to undergo a crucial hip surgery that would have potentially sidelined him for the entirety of the year, a move that today stands as one of his biggest self-admitted regrets. Instead, Thomas made his long-awaited return 4 months into the season on January 2nd of 2018. Thomas's time in Cleveland was quiet and mediocre. The team was in the middle of the pack, his stat line of 15-5 wasn't anything special, and the Celtics offered him no tribute upon his first game back in Boston. A high usage rate player that preferred the offense to be run through him, IT struggled to mesh with LeBron, and tension between the two was clearly present whenever the two interacted.
When we hit adversity, we go our separate ways, and that's just how I feel.
But it wasn't only LeBron. Less than a month after his Cavaliers debut, Thomas held a team meeting accusing Kevin Love of faking an illness so that he could miss a game against the Thunder, a game in which the Cavs had ended up losing by 24.
There was noise coming out of the Cleveland Cavaliers camp, Max, that he was a distraction, that he was somebody that complained a little bit too much, that was outspoken. He actually led the charge against Kevin Love.
Maybe Thomas's criticisms came from a good place. Lord knows he's played through endless injuries as well as the tragic death of his sister back in 2017, so perhaps he took Love's decision to rest a little personally, but the team nevertheless saw this meeting as an act of arrogance and a threat to team chemistry. When a bombshell article written by Kevin Love in the Players Tribune only 2 months later revealed that he'd been suffering from in-game panic attacks for the past half year, it suddenly became extremely clear why he had mysteriously subbed out of that game only 3 minutes in, never to return.
I really felt like I was gonna die in this moment. I'm getting hot thinking about it.
While Thomas never had the right to barge in and take charge so quickly in the first place, there was no outcome to his approach that could have better exemplified exactly why someone so unknowledgeable about the rest of the team situation should act like he's the man right off the bat.
Listen, all those teammates that are there in Cleveland should personally apologize to Kevin Love and say, man, we didn't know.
Through questioning the legitimacy of Kevin Love's mental health conditions, Thomas not only destroyed a decades-long friendship with Love that had first culminated when the two were only children, but almost forced the Cavaliers to frantically find a trade partner to get this guy off the team before he did any more damage.
First of all, since you got here, you have no seniority to address me in any matter. You just got here a month ago. Where you been? He can't even talk. What are you talking for? No, he just got here.
Who did this guy think he was, acting as if he was the man of this team while he couldn't even muster up 15 points a game?
Brian, you just said that Isaiah Thomas is killing this team. The Cavs defense is nearly 8 points worse in terms of defensive efficiency when IT has been on the floor.
It was clear that Thomas was in denial about the position he was in. In his mind, he still was that 30-point scorer he had become known for in Boston, and had planned on leading Cleveland the same way he had led the Celtics. But his peers on the roster and the world at large didn't view him as qualified to do this.
Isaiah Thomas thinks he's a superstar after one good year. Russell didn't become a superstar after 1 year. Steph didn't. James Harden. Put some time in, bro.
Cleveland did the best they could with this battered version of Isaiah Thomas, consistently inserting him into the starting lineup and playing him big minutes from time to time, but despite playing only 6 less minutes per game than he did in his miracle year with Boston, he was putting up 14 less points.
Looked like a totally different team in the second half on both ends, and that's what this team has been this whole season, inconsistent.
And only one day after LeBron iconically ignored IT on this celebration following a buzzer beater, the man was traded away to the Lakers.